300,000 years ago, there were at least 9 different species of human walking the earth. 40,000 years ago, there was one. Not because the others evolved into us, because they didn't. They died, and you are the only ones left standing on a planet that used to be full of you. And almost nobody knows their names. This is the story of the other humans, the ones who didn't make it, and the uncomfortable question of what happened to them. For most of modern history, the story of human evolution has been told like a ladder, a line. You go back far enough and you find an ape. Go back a little further and you find something hunched and small. Then the line straightens, and at the top of the line, every step of the way, is us. A single species on a single march from the trees to whatever you call this. That story is comforting. It is also almost completely wrong. In the early 2000s, a paleoanthropologist named Maria Martinon Torres was working through a bone collection in a lab in Spain when she noticed something that didn't fit. A molar, a child's molar. It had been dug out of a cave in southern China and labeled Homo sapiens. But the shape of the cusps, the way the roots curved, the density of the enamel, none of it matched. She ran it again. She sent it to other labs. They all said the same thing. The tooth wasn't a modern human. It was something older, something that shouldn't have been there. The tooth was 100,000 years old. For decades, scientists had treated the rest of the human family like a footnote. A few small branches, a couple of dead ends. The picture was tidy. There was us, and then there was a clutter of cousins that got out of the way before the story really began. That picture is over now. The fossil record over the last 20 years has exploded. Every year, new species are being pulled out of the ground in Africa, in Asia, in the islands of Indonesia. The more we dig, the more crowded the human family tree turns out to be. As of today, paleoanthropologists recognize at least 9 distinct species of human who lived alongside each other, sometimes for hundreds of thousands of years. Not in a straight line, in a thicket. And they were not background characters. They had cities worth of years to become who they were. Take Neanderthals. You know the name, but what you probably don't know is how like you they were. They buried their dead with flowers. They made jewelry from eagle talons. They cared for their injured for decades, which means they had to have a concept of the future. They had hyoid bones identical to yours, the bone that lets you speak, and a version of the FOXP2 gene that in modern humans is associated with language. A 2018 study published in Nature Ecology and Evolution argued that Neanderthals were not the brutish dead end of the human family. They were a parallel branch, a different solution to the same problem. They were not on the way to becoming you. They were being themselves, in their own way, for over 400,000 years. Then there were the denisovans. You have never seen a denisovan skull. Nobody has. They were first identified in 2010 from a single finger bone, that bone again, found in a cave in the Altai Mountains of Siberia. The DNA inside that finger rewrote human prehistory. The girl it came from had brown eyes, dark hair, and a jaw heavier than yours. She was strong. Her people were strong. They lived across Asia, survived the Ice Age, and mated with both Neanderthals and us. If you have any Melanesian ancestry, you carry her DNA, right now, in your body. She was not your ancestor. She was your cousin, and her kind is gone. In the islands of Indonesia, on the island of Flores, there was a species the locals had been talking about for centuries. Stories of little people in the forest. Ibu gogo, they called them. Short, hairy, fast, talkative in a language no one could understand. Scientists dismissed the stories. Then in 2003, a team found a skeleton in a cave called Liang Bua. It was an adult. It stood about 3.5 feet tall. It had a brain the size of a chimpanzee's. It had its own tools. It had been dead for about 50,000 years. They named it Homo floresiensis, the hobbit. It lived on that island for at least 100,000 years. It was a fully functioning human species, and nobody knows how its story ended. In South Africa, in 2013, a pair of cavers were crawling through the Rising Star cave system when they found something they couldn't believe. A chamber filled with bones. Not fossils, bones. 15 individuals. A new species. Homonality. They had small brains, they had hands shaped for climbing and tool use at the same time, and they had carried their dead deep underground into a chamber that was almost impossible to reach and left them there on purpose. That is not the behavior of an animal. That is a ritual. In the Philippines, in 2019, scientists announced Homo luzonensis, a species unknown to science, found in a single cave on the island of Luzon. In Israel, the jaw of a population they call Nesher Ramla, a strange mixture of Neanderthal and older human features dated to 120,000 years ago. In Ethiopia, Homo idoltu, possibly the closest thing to your direct ancestor, found 30 years ago and still debated. In Kenya, a jaw fragment from 2017 that may belong to an entirely new lineage we haven't named yet. This is not a tree, this is a forest. And until very recently, almost no one knew it existed. So what happened to them? This is the part where the story starts to get uncomfortable. Because the answer is not simple. The answer is also not settled. There are basically three theories, and each one is more disturbing than the last. The first is the most polite: climate. As the ice ages intensified, environments across Eurasia and Africa shifted, habitats shrank, food got scarce. The specialists, the ones too adapted to one place, collapsed. The generalists, the flexible ones, the ones who could eat anything and live anywhere, survived. That's us. Homo sapiens is one of the most behaviorally flexible species that has ever existed. We ate everything. We lived everywhere. We adapted to deserts, rainforests, coasts, mountains, tundras, islands. Other humans could not. There is real evidence for this. Neanderthals were heavily adapted to cold, forested Europe. When the forests thinned, the prey they relied on disappeared. Denisovans lived on the edge of the Tibetan plateau and disappeared as the plateau froze. Homo floresiensis lived on an island with limited resources and probably starved as its environment changed. Climate pressure is real. It is probably part of the story. But it cannot be the whole story. The second theory is that we did it, not deliberately, not with a plan, but by doing what every successful invasive species on Earth has done. We outcompeted them. We took their food. We crowded them out. There is a model in population biology called competitive exclusion. When two species compete for the same niche, the more efficient one wins, and the other slowly disappears. Modern humans had better tools, better weapons, bigger social networks. We could coordinate in groups of hundreds. We could plan seasons ahead. We could trade across continents. We were, in ecological terms, a more efficient human. When modern humans arrived in Europe, the archaeological record of Neanderthals changes. Their toolkits get simpler. Their ranges shrink. Their populations decline. By 40,000 years ago, they are gone. This is the part of the story no one wants to be true, because it means the same brain that built cathedrals and wrote symphonies was also, at some point, the reason the other humans disappeared. Not necessarily by killing them, just by being too good at being them. The third theory is the strangest. Some paleoanthropologists now believe that we did not replace them. We absorbed them. They argue that every human alive today, outside of sub-Saharan Africa, carries between 1% and 4% Neanderthal DNA. That Melanesians carry up to 5% Denisovan DNA. That the other humans didn't go extinct. They went into us. That when you look in the mirror, the other humans are looking back. This is not a metaphor. It is now the consensus position in human genetics. The borders between these species were not clean. They were not walls. They were gradients. They met. They mated. They produced children. Those children were raised, in many cases, in Homo sapiens groups. The other humans became, slowly, quietly, part of us. Which means the question, what happened to the other humans, may not have a clean answer. They did not vanish. They were not replaced. They were, in a very real sense, folded in. And that is the most haunting possibility of all. Because it means the last 40,000 years of human history have been run by a single species, us, on a planet that used to be full of minds, as complicated, as strange, as stubborn, as ours. We don't know what the Neanderthals would have built. We don't know what the Denisovans would have become. We don't know what Homo floresiensis was thinking when it stood 3 feet tall on an island in the Pacific and looked out at a sea it would never cross. We were not the only people who could have made it. We were the only people who did. And every single human alive today is descended from the one branch of the family that, for whatever combination of reasons, climate, competition, luck, flexibility, violence, mixing, happened to be in the right place at the right time, with the right genes, with the right kind of brain. There is a name for this in biology. It's called contingent evolution. It means the outcome was not inevitable. The world you live in is one of many worlds that could have existed. If the climate had shifted differently, if the volcanoes had erupted in different places, if a single mutation had gone a single way in a single individual 300,000 years ago, you would not be here. Something else would be. Something as smart, maybe, but not you, not your kind. The other humans are not a footnote. They are not a side branch. They are what your ancestors were not. And their absence is the reason you are here at all. Look around you. Every building, every city, every conversation, every argument, every love letter, every war, every joke, every song, all of it is the output of one surviving line out of a family that once had 9. We tend to think of human history as a single story, a single species moving forward, a single mind, a single destiny. It wasn't. It was a long, quiet pruning, and we are the only branch that didn't get cut.